I made a huge mistake. I was thinking we needed to duplicate what we were doing in San Pedro, which was if somebody's going to buy a San Pedro Fish Market product, they're going to expect it to be the same thing they get in the restaurant. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't let them down.
Price tag's still on there.
Oh my God!
And the name brand of the shirt.
So somewhere around 20 or so years ago, I went back to work for the family business. I'd been doing some different things. And, when I'd come back to work, I wasn't exactly intending to stay, but I started to look at what the business was doing and what opportunities there could be outside the four walls of the business. And the reason I said that was I had a lot of family running the business their entire lives. We had a lot of long-term employees. Still to this day, we have people that have been with us over 30 years. They didn't really need any help on operations. They kind of had that all handled. I wasn't really interested in operations. I was interested in what we could do with the brand. And I remember having this conversation with Tommy, my uncle, one of the founders, and you can see him in Kings of Fish if you watch. He's in every episode. And Tommy was telling me about this time way, way back when the Price Club was just starting, which later became Costco. And he had a connection at Price Club that was able to get him in on an off day, not the day they go in to pitch products, right? Just a random off day. Came in, hi, I'm Tommy, so-and-so sent me in. And they're like, well, you must really be somebody because we don't listen to pitches on this day of the week, only this other day. So who are you and why are you here? And he goes, well, I've got this business and we have this fantastic product. It's a clam chowder. We think it would be great. And I brought you some to sample. And they just went crazy for it. And they wanted to buy it. Problem was they wanted a whole lot of it, like pallets of it. And we, at the time, the business had just opened. We were just kind of getting our, it's not that we just opened. We had just opened San Pedro Fish Market. So we had just moved out of the parking lot that we had been stuck in the 70s. And we're now opening San Pedro Fish, which was Good Friday about 1982. And so I don't know if the challenge to that was we opened Good Friday 1982 and it rained all year. So we were still digging out of debt, trying to rebuild from being in a parking lot, very similar to where we are right now, ironically. But the finances weren't there to buy all this clam chowder and supply it. And by the way, if it doesn't sell, they give it back to you. So there was a whole bunch of risk, and Tommy couldn't take advantage of this opportunity. And I'd heard the story, and he talked to me about it, and I thought, maybe I'll give that a shot. And we still had the same clam chowder, and we had our financial situation was better. And I thought, maybe we can try again. So we started talking to different brokers, and we set up some different meetings, and we looked into people that we knew in the industry. And we're like, we need to figure out how to create a packaged product. We hadn't done this before. Do we use what we have? We have this clam chowder. We tested it. And we brought in different people and tested different things. And what they kept saying was, listen, there's no shortage of clam chowder. Everybody has it. It's pretty competitive. But what's going on here at your restaurant? I hadn't been here before. What are these giant trays of seafood floating all over the place that people are eating? Because why don't we try to work on a packaged version of that? I go, I never thought about that. I had no idea. So that's what we did. And it took a long time. I mean, we went from Chicago to Sacramento. We traveled all over the place meeting with different companies that could do so there was different components to this. There was a produce component, there's a seafood component, there's the packaging, there's the design on the packaging. And I didn't know anything about this, and I wasn't really getting the guidance that I needed for the people the people that we brought on, because I made a huge mistake. I was thinking we needed to duplicate what we were doing in San Pedro, which was if somebody's going to buy a San Pedro Fish Market product, they're going to expect it to be the same thing they get in the restaurant. And I wanted to make sure that we didn't let them down. So as we went and looked at competing products on the shelf in the frozen section of a grocery store, there wasn't very much shrimp and anything that had a shrimp component. And the shrimp were really small. Like, now we're going to use big shrimp and we're going to put a lot of shrimp in because I'm thinking about the San Pedro Fish Market customer. And that was my biggest mistake. So we built this whole thing. We had 8 ounces of shrimp. We used, I think we were using a 3140, if I remember correctly. It's a pretty decent size shrimp, whereas most of these packaged bags had something like a fraction of that size. And we tried to copy the recipe of what we were doing in the trays, which was so much percentage of tomato to bell pepper to potato to onion. And then we realized as we were testing different products, if we didn't use the same cooking oil we had at the restaurant, the flavor profile was totally different. And so we had to figure out, well, we're going to get red potatoes. We tried all these different kinds of frozen potatoes from all over the place, mostly Oregon, but it was like there's gold and there's this and there's that, but it was really the red potato that we needed. Then you had to figure out what exact size is going to cook, because the idea was you would put all this into a frying pan, a frozen shrimp, frozen potato, bell pepper, tomato, onion, the seasoning, the oil, and it would simmer and cook and be done correctly. So it meant finding the potatoes that were the correct size, individually frozen but pre-cooked. We needed to find a bell pepper, a tomato, and an onion mix that was the right percentage of what we were doing in the restaurant. But how do those freeze? They don't freeze that great. So we tried all these different types of tomatoes, different types of peppers, different types of onions until we finally got something that we liked. And then our chef at the time was like, "Well, we use a half an ounce of seasoning." Actually, he didn't even know that. He was like this much, and I had figured out, well, that's about a half ounce. And I made another mistake because a half an ounce could be measured or weighed, and they're not the same. So we were using a half ounce cup, but when you packaged a half an ounce, it was too spicy weighted versus measured. So we had figured out it was actually 7 grams of seasoning. Then you had to find a company that could take the seasoning and put it in a pouch, and not everybody can do that. And the same with the oil. Then we had our cooking oil. We could buy the oil, but who's going to put it into a pouch? So we got to the point where we had a vendor for the veggies, a vendor for the potatoes, a vendor for the shrimp, a vendor to make the seasoning, a vendor to put the seasoning in a pouch, another vendor for the oil, and another one that can put the oil in a pouch. And trying to coordinate all this and get it all done was insane, right? But we did it. Now we needed the packaging. And where's the packaging going to get made? And it was really hard. It wasn't really to the end of this project that I found somebody local that could do that. So we ended up getting bags out of different parts of Asia. And that's interesting too, because we had a very vibrantly colored bag. It had 7 or 8 different colors, which meant different plates that had to get made. And the plates were hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And apparently, when we went to order more bags, the plates expire or crack, and you have to rebuild them and spend all that money again. So when you're trying to think, if you know anything about logistics, there's so much to manage there. And we didn't even get to the shrimp. We had to buy the shrimp too. And you have to buy the shrimp by container. And the shrimp had to be portioned down. So we had 8 ounces of shrimp, 8 ounces of potato, and then 8 ounces on the veggie mix. So you had a 24-ounce bag or pound-and-a-half bag that could feed 2 people, could technically feed a family of 4 with all these different components. So the problem was, where I really screwed up on this, was it was a great product. People loved it. We got the seasoning, component to the veggie to ratio to the shrimp and everything correct, and it could cook in under 10 minutes. But the customer that I had in mind, the San Pedro Fish Market customer who was going to eat this at home, wasn't actually my customer. My customer was the one that was going to pay me to buy this in bulk and put it in a grocery store. It was the grocery store buyer. And that's something that I completely screwed up on, because so when we went into the grocery stores, and at some point we actually were successful enough, we had it in about 6,000 different stores, but most of them didn't know who we were, and we were too expensive by like $1.50. So people wanted to go in and be able to buy a frozen meal, put it in their freezer for somewhere around 6, 7, maybe $8 at the high end. But ours had to sell at $9.99, sometimes more, depending on the price of shrimp, because it's a commodity and the prices change. Same with veggies, by the way. So we were priced out of the market in the frozen section by $1.50. Now, interesting part that I also learned in doing this is when we would go to meet with some of the grocery store buyers, one that was really, really great. It was in Sacramento, major chain, everybody would know. He bought the seafood, or he bought frozen meals for the main frozen aisle section that you walk down in the grocery store. He said, "Listen, here's the deal. This is a great product. You have a great story, but it's new and it's a little bit too expensive. And the problem is that each of these SKUs, meaning the little rows of items in the grocery store, those people pay a fee to be in there. And if I take one of them out and put yours in, they're going to come back and probably write me a pretty big check just to move you back out. If I had bad ethics, I would take your product, I'd buy it, and I'd go to them and I'd get that check and I'd kick you out and give you all your product back. But I'm not going to do that. I'm giving you advice instead. You're better off going into the butcher section, because when you go around the outside of the store and you have the meat and seafood areas, they have a whole different system for buying, and the competition's much lower. And there wasn't anything like our product in that part of the grocery store at the time. So I was super thankful that he told me that. We went and we talked to those buyers, and we were able to get our product into some of those stores. Now, another challenge there was we at the time had a pretty big social media following. We didn't have our TV show yet, but we did have a pretty big social media following all over the country. And so we could use that to help build sales and tell by telling the story and putting this information out. The problem was most of the butchers, like my family, I kind of consider my family in that same domain. Like fishmongers and butchers are, there's always somebody missing a finger. I'm not one of them, by the way. But they're not, they were kind of old school and like, I just want to fill my showcase and sell it. I don't really know what social media is. We do coupons and scan backs and all these other things, and you just need to figure out how to do that. And we did, but it was such a missed opportunity because the social media component of what we were doing could have made all the difference in the world. And I'll give you an example of where it started. We were in two major locations. One, outside of the grocery stores that you might be used to going to, we were also in Sam's Club. And we talked a lot to Costco, but we're never able to secure an actual PO. But in both of those cases, what we did was before I went to meet, like for Sam's Club as an example, was actually Walmart's where you go meet. We asked our customers on social media who lived all over the country who shops at a Walmart or Sam's Club. And I was actually able to specifically focus that question using Facebook used to allow you to focus your ads or your posts. So they'd be seeing specific zip codes into Bentonville where we were going to meet. And the response was actually pretty amazing. It was all over the country. Everyone's like, yeah, I would buy that product. Yeah, I shop at that place. Yeah, I'm a customer of yours. And so we were able to demonstrate to the buyer this post. I actually made the post probably like an hour before the sales meeting. I asked my customers an hour ago, and here's what they're saying. They'd love to buy our product in your stores. And that helps to secure the Sam's Club account. That was huge. But the problem was, again, a little bit too expensive, and we didn't have the right marketing push to continue on because we didn't have that team at the time. So the product did okay, but not well enough to stay on the shelves. Same with the grocery stores. The other one that was kind of cool was HEB. So those of you in Texas might know HEB is huge in Texas, right? They're massive. They placed a massive order, and why did they do that? Because we had just hit those Guinness World Records in our Lobster Fest, and we had somebody film it and try to turn it into a TV show called Fishmongers. And I brought the ad piece, a sizzle reel, to show the HEB buyers, and they're like, "Oh, this is fantastic. We'll take all you got. We'll stock it in all the stores. What channel is this TV show going to be on?" I'm like, "I'm not going to. There's no TV show. It's just an ad. I just wanted you to know who we are because we're California and you're Texas." When they just couldn't seem to get past it because it looked so much like a TV show, they didn't want to miss out, and they knew it was going to be on TV, which it never was. We didn't have anything to put on TV at the time, and we weren't even trying to. So they placed this huge order, and again, we had no backup marketing because Fishmongers never got made, and our social media was just sort of growing at the time. We didn't really know how to utilize it effectively. So the HEB was a failure, although they did place a big order. They never placed a second one. And that's why we decided ultimately that we should look into this whole TV show thing. And Kings of Fish was born out of that situation. The other one I thought was pretty cool. We were also in a grocery store called Times Market in Hawaii. So I was on vacation in Maui with my family, and we would shop there. It's right next to the hotel we were staying at. And I go, check it out. We're here in Maui, and there's a San Pedro Fish Market meal here. And I was asking the butcher, "Hey, does anyone buy this product?" And he goes, "What product?" He had no idea it was there. Store manager, never heard of it. So it was there, but it wasn't getting any marketing support, which is what I had been offering all along. So I went back to the hotel and I did a picture. I had taken a picture of the product in the Times Market store, and I put it on our Facebook page, and I targeted it to the zip codes within Maui that were around Times Markets, saying, "Hey, if you're a fan of ours, did you know this product's now available in Maui?" I went back the next day, and it all sold out. And the manager was trying to locate different Times Markets to have more product sent in or transferred between stores to keep up with the demand. So again, like I keep finding we could come up with the right product, but if you don't have the right pricing, you don't have the right marketing model, it would fail. So during the pandemic, we ultimately shut it all down. But we're thinking about bringing it back. So stay tuned. There might be something there. That's the story about the San Pedro Fish Market, world famous shrimp trays. We had 3 versions of it. It was a fun project, but without the right team, without the right knowledge, it was a lot of trial and error that ultimately didn't quite go the way I thought it would go. But you know what? 6,000 stores. It's a lot of people with the San Pedro Fish Market brand in their homes. And I think it made a huge difference in our sales, because as soon as we started putting them out there, even though it didn't become a profitable product line, our sales in the stores did start to jump double digits annually. So it wasn't a complete loss. And that's the story. Until next time, thanks.